It lay in complete silence beneath Egypt's burning sands for thousands of years. In 1922, when Howard Carter finally broke through that sealed doorway and looked inside, later saying he saw wonderful things, the world was introduced not just to treasure, but to a legend reborn. Among the discoveries was a golden mask that would become one of the most recognizable faces of the ancient world, calm, symmetrical, almost divine. For decades, that flawless image shaped how we imagined the young king. But the real man behind that golden mask was nothing like the idealized portrait preserved in museums. Historians and scientists were obsessed with one central mystery. Why did a pharaoh die at only 19 years old? For years, a small hole found at the back of his skull fueled a dark and dramatic theory: that Tutankhamun had been murdered. According to this idea, he had been struck from behind in a palace conspiracy, killed by those eager to seize power. It sounded like the perfect story: a young ruler, betrayal, and a hidden assassination at the heart of the royal court. But in the 21st century, that narrative began to collapse. A scientific team led by Zahi Hawass applied modern forensic methods to the royal mummies, replacing speculation with evidence. What they uncovered was far more complex and far more tragic than any murder plot. This was not simply the story of a king's death, but of an entire dynasty shaped by power, belief, and genetic consequence. To understand what happened, we need to go back decades before his death, to the reign of Amenhotep III around 1390 BCE. Egypt at that time stood at the peak of its strength, a vast empire stretching from the Euphrates River in the north to deep into Nubia in the south. Wealth flowed through the kingdom, temples flourished, and tradition held everything together. It was an era of stability, but that stability would not survive the next generation. After Amenhotep III died, his son Akhenaten ascended the throne and initiated one of the most radical transformations in Egyptian history. He rejected the traditional gods, especially the powerful cult of Amun, and replaced them with the worship of a single deity, the sun disk Aten. This was not just a religious adjustment, it was a complete revolution. He even abandoned Thebes, the spiritual heart of Egypt, and built a new capital from scratch in the desert, Amarna. Into this unstable and shifting world, Tutankhamun was born. At birth, he was named Tutankhaten, meaning living image of Aten, reflecting his father's new religion. But when Akhenaten died, the young boy, only about 9 years old, was thrust onto the throne. Surrounded by advisors and political pressure, he reversed his father's reforms. He restored the old gods, reopened temples, and changed his name to Tutankhamun, aligning himself once again with Amun. Despite these efforts, his reign was brief, and when he died at 19, he left no surviving heir. For a long time, the reason for his early death remained unclear. In the early 2000s, scientists were cautious about performing DNA analysis on ancient mummies, due to contamination risks. But by 2008, a specialized laboratory in Cairo made it possible to conduct precise genetic studies. Researchers collected bone samples from 11 royal mummies, including Tutankhamun, carefully removing the darkened resins left from the mummification process to isolate usable DNA. One of the first major questions was the identity of his father. The answer came from a mysterious mummy discovered in tomb KV55 in the Valley of the Kings. Its coffin had been deliberately defaced, with names erased as if the individual had been condemned to be forgotten. DNA testing revealed a direct father-son relationship with Tutankhamun through the Y chromosome. Combined with historical evidence, this mummy was identified as Akhenaten. But an even more shocking discovery followed. To identify Tutankhamun's mother, scientists analyzed a mummy known as the Younger Lady, found in a side chamber years earlier. The DNA results confirmed she was his mother, but also revealed something deeply disturbing. She was the full sister of Akhenaten. In other words, Tutankhamun was born from a union between brother and sister. In ancient Egypt, such marriages within the royal family were not uncommon. They were believed to preserve divine bloodlines and maintain political power, mirroring the relationships of the gods themselves. But biology does not follow belief. Close genetic relationships significantly increase the likelihood of inherited disorders, and Tutankhamun's body showed clear evidence of that cost. CT scans revealed that the young pharaoh suffered from a severe deformity known as a club foot. Parts of the bones in his foot were undergoing necrosis, meaning the tissue was dying. This condition would have caused constant pain and made walking extremely difficult. Inside his tomb, archaeologists discovered more than 130 walking sticks, Once thought to be ceremonial symbols of authority, they were now understood as essential tools he relied on daily. Even artistic depictions hinted at the truth. While other rulers were shown standing or in action, Tutankhamun was often seated. The theory of murder also began to fall apart. In 2005, detailed scans showed that the hole in his skull had actually been created during the mummification process, not by violence. The idea of assassination was effectively dismissed. But the question remained, what actually killed him? The answer came from genetic testing that detected DNA from Plasmodium falciparum in his remains. This parasite is responsible for the deadliest form of malaria, and its presence in Tutankhamun's body provided one of the earliest confirmed cases of the disease in human history. Evidence suggested he had suffered multiple infections. For someone in good health, malaria is not always fatal. But Tutankhamun was far from healthy. His immune system was already weakened by genetic factors and chronic illness. Then came a final, devastating injury. Scans revealed that shortly before his death, he had suffered a serious fracture to his left leg above the knee. The wound had not healed and was likely open, creating a direct pathway for infection. At that point, everything came together. This was not a single cause, but a cascade of failures. A fragile body shaped by generations of inbreeding, chronic bone disease, a traumatic injury, and a severe malaria infection all struck at once. His body simply could not cope. Infection spread, his immune system collapsed, and the young king likely died in significant pain. His death also marked the end of a royal line. DNA tests performed on 2 small mummified fetuses found in his tomb confirmed they were his daughters. Their mother was most likely Akhenaten, who may also have been closely related to him. The genetic burden carried by both parents was too great to produce a healthy, surviving heir. With Tutankhamun's death, the 18th dynasty, one of the most powerful periods in Egyptian history, came to a biological end. Power eventually shifted to new rulers, including Ramses II and his successors. Determined to erase the controversial Amarna period, they destroyed monuments, removed names from records, and attempted to wipe Tutankhamun and his lineage from history entirely. Yet, in an unexpected twist, that erasure helped preserve him. Because his memory was suppressed, his tomb remained hidden and untouched by grave robbers. And thousands of years later, modern science allowed his story to be told again, this time not as myth, but as reality. Today, the remains displayed in museums reveal something far deeper than the image of a perfect king. Beneath the gold mask and royal titles was a young man who struggled with physical disability, endured constant illness, and ultimately became a victim of his own genetic inheritance. His story is no longer just about ancient glory. It is a powerful reminder of the human cost hidden behind it. Thanks for watching. Subscribe for more stories where archaeology, science, and history come together.